Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is holistic grief counsellor Gemma Kyriakou, and we're going to be talking about how to manage the grief and loss of a parent. Welcome to the program, Gemma.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Everyone has a different approach to grief. How can we help people in this journey?
The grief is a natural human response to the passing of a loved one. The death of a parent is probably one of the most significant losses that you will encounter. We lose our safety net when a parent dies, or both parents. And safety is a primal basic human need, and when we lose that safety, it's often replaced with a fear, which is often anxiety that comes out as anxiety. So everyone manages and copes differently with grief. It looks very different to each person. Some people become withdrawn, some people very expressive, a lot of anger, and everything is validated. Everything that you feel, every emotion is important to express and feel in order to process. I would always suggest when a parent passes to reach out and speak to a trusted friend or your siblings, to keep the lines of communication open so there are no misunderstandings or grievances.
You say that everyone approaches grief differently. Does that extend to different family members? And if so, what are the consequences?
The consequences of a parent passing, especially when both parents have passed, is if there are, for example, minors and there are small children now left without their parents. This adds such another layer of emotional, extreme stress for the people that are left behind. In my instance, when my mother passed away when I was 20, my sister was only 7, and her dad really wasn't in the picture at that time. So I was left with not a great support system and having to navigate all the legal complexities and go through the correct channels in what was going to happen to, my sister that was only 7 years old, which added an extreme amount of pressure to myself that was only 20 years old and really didn't know how to navigate that. So this is why I do the work I do now today, is to help people process their emotions, help navigate them through difficult times and help them on their journey.
Can grief be shown in physical and emotional symptoms?
Yes, absolutely they can. You hold a lot of tension when you're grieving. That's a natural response. So that might result in headaches and migraines, especially if you're predisposed. Being tense in the back area, which will result in soreness, muscle tension, which is often a sign of not feeling supported in that time of your life. Grief is very much held in the lungs, so that will come across with shortness of breath. That will show up as anxiety, that will show up as a panic attack, for example, when it's really just a stored, an intense stored emotion that needs to be released and it's trying to come out. With the anxiety, this is a very common symptom of the passing of a loved one because of such of the unknown of what is now going to come into your life. And if we don't keep on top of the anxiety, then we can start coming into depression. So it's very important to start recognizing what you're feeling and to reach out to people to keep those lines of communication open so we don't spiral and we don't go into a depression. So depression, it's a very common side effect of the passing of a loved one, especially a parent. There's so much unknown. So with depression, it may show up as self-isolation. It will show up as intrusive thoughts, lack of motivation, really just wanting to hide away, and just a lack of interest in life in general, which it can be quite normal in a short term, but if this prolongs, this is when we need to seek out professional help and guidance. There can be cultural expectations and cultural consequences with the passing of a parent. Many cultures, religions require things to be done systematically, and now the siblings that are left behind may not necessarily agree with that. Also, with cultural expectations, it's not the done thing to be expressive or talk about how you're feeling. I think what is most important here is to acknowledge the person that has passed and recognise exactly what they would have wanted, and we have to leave our ego and our own personal beliefs at the door and recognise the person that's passed, what they would have wanted for themselves in this moment. Again, very important to recognise those feelings and recognise those emotions and seek advice and guidance from, a trusted friend or a professional.
Talking about advice, what advice would you give to people dealing with grief?
My advice for anyone dealing with grief is to, one, just be kind to yourself. It really is a time where you need to allow yourself a lot of grace, recognise and feel into the emotions and the feelings that you are feeling in your body. We want to stop these feelings from being trapped and stored, because they can manifest. We want to help release them for our overall mental and physical well-being. So absolutely consult a friend. It really is about keeping the lines of communication open, because we can self-isolate. We can just hide away. And that might be good in the short term, but long term it's detrimental to our overall health and well-being. And of course, seeking out a counsellor that specialises in this niche and someone that can understand exactly what you're feeling and help guide you through processing and navigating all the feelings and emotions that you are experiencing. There are also free support lines out there for you to call on demand, for example, Lifeline.
Thanks, Gemma. That's been really informative.
Thank you, Melissa.
If you'd like to know more about how to manage the grief and loss of a parent and Gemma, go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. After the break, we'll have another guest with an interesting topic.